Ah, quiet quitting. One of my most underrated skills that if I were honest, I should put on my resume. I've been quiet quitting for probably 50% of my career, and I'm glad it's gone mainstream now because it's a pandemic that warrants much more attention. The Gallup studies have been droning on for years about how most of the global workforce is quietly or actively disengaged. 77%, in fact, as of 2024. Scammy internet trolls started exploiting people, selling them empty dreams of not just quiet quitting, but actually quitting their shit job to follow their passion. And it worked like a charm because people just wanted out. But I digress. In this video, let's look at what quiet quitting means, how it came to be, who can actually afford to quiet quit, whether it's sustainable in the long run, the benefit of quiet quitting, hybrid quiet quitting, and finally, what can be done about it, if anything. So, what is quiet quitting? Believed to be inspired by the Tangping or lying flat movement in China, quiet quitting in the West is a grassroots movement that started on TikTok back in 2022. In essence, it refers to employees doing the bare minimum to get a paycheck without giving employers any real grounds to fire them. While Tangping saw people literally recording themselves lying flat and doing nothing as a protest against the mindless rat race, and the CCP doing such a good job censoring content that I could barely find one video to show you, quiet quitting in the West could probably do with a PR manager.
Or like carefully coasting.
Okay, maybe carefully coasting does have a ring to it. So, how did it go mainstream? Employee disengagement has been a hot topic for decades, with constant global protests about real wages not keeping up with inflation, inadequate compensation, and poor working conditions. Especially in the white collar world, incompetent management is a major reason for employee disengagement, leading to widespread quiet quitting.
That would be great.
The Chinese Tangping movement in 2021 and later TikTok in the US in 2022 helped the term go mainstream. And I'm glad because it's important to have the right terminology in place. This way, it's a lot easier for employees and employers to identify and address the underlying issues rather than constantly beating around the bush. Now, can everyone afford to quiet quit? Well, unfortunately for those aspiring to be professional quiet quitters, life isn't always easy. If you're working in a factory or a warehouse and every footstep and toilet break has to be accounted for, there's almost no room to quiet quit. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to meet those targets. For white-collar roles with less quality control though, quiet quitting can be a lot easier to adopt. Say you're working in sales and your target is the number of cold calls or even just the minutes that you're on call. You can drudge along putting in zero effort into the quality of the calls and blame things like market conditions or pricing. And it'll probably be a while before you call out for the lack of effort, at which point you can just pretend for a little bit and fall under the radar again. I've seen it 100 times. Now the question is quiet quitting sustainable in the long run? In an ideal world, if you could make the money you wanted to and take care of your pension by just doing the bare minimum, it would be sustainable. However, the job market is the most competitive it's ever been, and AI is quietly kicking quiet quitters by the wayside. I really can't see how anyone can pull off an entire career quiet quitting. 30 years ago, yes, maybe, but in today's world, things likely aren't going to end well if you never find a role in which you genuinely want to put in the effort. Before you know it, every aspect of your job will be automated, and if you haven't developed any skills or expertise because you always just did the bare minimum, you really can't expect to be rewarded. So, what's the benefit of quiet quitting? I'm actually a big advocate of quiet quitting as a stopgap solution if you're looking to switch roles or start something of your own. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you just can't muster up the motivation to put in the effort, and that's okay. If it's temporary, you can actually benefit by quiet quitting, and you're not harming the company or yourself. All you're doing is buying yourself some time and headspace to figure out your next move, and you absolutely have the right to do so. So, if you have a plan in place, I'd say go for it. Now, hybrid quiet quitting is an interesting one. If you're smart about it, you can quiet quit and still perform well at your job and find the extra time to pursue a hobby, another career, or a business. Especially today, it's often possible to automate the majority of your work. The most infamous example is the programmer codenamed Bob, who back in 2013 outsourced his entire job to a firm in Shenyang, China, paying them just 1/5 of his salary. Sources say he was even noted as the best developer in the building, so no one really suspected him of being demotivated or quiet quitting. Now, I wouldn't recommend this method because Bob eventually got caught and it didn't end very well. Also, Bob would have probably been better off in the long run working and actually honing his skills rather than scrolling through cat videos, Reddit, and Facebook. Finally, let's quickly take a look at whether we can do anything about it. What if you've been hit by the quiet quitting bug and you'd rather do anything with your time than your actual job? Well, first off, you absolutely need to figure it out because ultimately you do need to put in the work, get really good at something, and add value with the skill to start making bank. So there are 3 things I'd recommend you do. First, figure out if it's something about the job, the company, or the manager that's causing this disengagement and whether there's anything you can actually do about it. Second, actually become proficient at quiet quitting if you have to, so you can use this extra time to figure out an alternative life plan. And don't just waste this extra time slacking. Third, take some time out to visualize your dream future in which you're productive, happy, and have the finances you desire. This always works for me when I'm in a slump and down on motivation and gives me that renewed burst of energy that I need. And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This was my first video, so a like, comment, or hitting that magical subscribe button would absolutely mean the world. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.